I'm Douglas Murray. This is Direct Address. Today I wanted to talk about Ireland because I believe that the Irish Republic is providing a signal lesson in what not to do in our era. Ireland was back in the news last week because the MMA fighter Conor McGregor went to the White House, and he had a few things to say about the situation in his home country, and he didn't pull any punches. He described the situation that's going on in Ireland as a travesty. He said, Ireland is at risk of losing its Irishness, and he said that this was the case due to the illegal immigration racket. Now, Conor McGregor was immediately attacked by almost all the mainstream Irish politicians. They all stressed that Conor McGregor didn't speak for Ireland, as if anyone, including McGregor, thought that he specifically did. He was simply voicing his views, and they're the views that many Irish people do hold. And in my view, at any rate, it's a very good thing to have such an issue out in the open. But that's never what politicians want when it comes to issues of legal and illegal migration. They always want to shut down the person who's identified the problem instead of actually dealing with the problem. And the fact that Ireland has problems that have come about due to legal and illegal immigration is absolutely irrefutable. Many people in Ireland notice, they can't not notice, things like the Algerian-born man who stabbed 3 children in November 2023 in the centre of Dublin. You can't not notice, if you're Irish, things like the Iraqi-born man who a few years ago beheaded 2 gay men in Sligo. He didn't like the fact they were gay, and so he beheaded them, bringing some of the cultural norms, perhaps, that he himself grew up with. But many Irish people don't particularly care for the beheading and the stabbing of children and much more. And yet they're told to shut up about it, and people like Conor McGregor are berated if they raise these sorts of issues. I've said for many years that when it comes to migration, there are 3 things that matter: the speed of the migration, the numbers of people coming, and the identity of the people coming. Nobody knows exactly which formula of those things works, but those are the 3 things that you always have to focus on. And if you do, the situation in Ireland is truly dire. In 2016, 17% of people in Ireland were foreign-born. And by 2023, that figure had gone up to 22%. So more than a fifth of people in Ireland were not born in the country. Last year, Ireland saw record numbers of migration, illegal and legal. Indeed, 87,000 non-EU citizens settled in the country. And for Americans and others, 87,000 migrants may seem like nothing, but for a country of 5 million people, that's absolutely huge. And then you have to look at the identity of the people who are coming to Ireland. Last year, most of the people who sought asylum in Ireland were from Nigeria, Jordan, Pakistan, Somalia, and Bangladesh. And there are many interesting things to note about that, but one of them is the fact that Ireland, and specifically Dublin, gave its name to a treaty which EU countries are meant to follow. It's called the Dublin Treaty, and I've said for many years that it effectively doesn't exist, doesn't work. Nobody really even pretends it works, well, apart from the politicians. But the Dublin Treaty specifies that a migrant wanting to claim asylum in a European country should do so in the first safe country they enter. And that's very curious in the case of Ireland, because almost none of these people from Nigeria, Jordan, Pakistan, Somalia, and Bangladesh will have set off in a boat and gone right around the coast and landed in, say, Dublin. almost nobody will have done that. Almost all of them will have gone through safe country after safe country, through Mediterranean European countries, through France, for instance, maybe even through the porous borders of the UK. So the Dublin Treaty is at this stage a total farce, and it's what's more damaging to the actual people in Dublin, because it's very clear from reaction of recent years, and actually of the last week, that the Irish people don't want legal or illegal migration at these numbers, at this speed, and from these places. And what's doubly curious about that is that Ireland is, of course, in many ways, you would think, immune to the claims of the open borders and mass migration lobby. For years in the UK, we were told that the migration that was happening into the mainland of Britain was happening because we had once been a colonial power. Many people gleefully said, "Ha, it's the Empire Strikes Back syndrome," as if Britain should be punished for the era of colonialism by having to have open borders in the 21st century. But many people will notice that Ireland, whatever else you think about it or say about it, was never a colonial country. It never had colonies. It did not send people round the world and claim territory for Ireland or rule places in the world in the name of the Irish government. So that Empire Strikes Back thing doesn't really work, does it? Except it never really was a claim. It was just one of a set of things that people said for years to justify a policy they were intent on in any case. And one of the other oddities about this is that it's not as if Ireland is a country immune from religious and ethnic strife. In fact, Ireland, Northern Ireland and the Republic, are still suffering some of the effects, many of the effects, of religious conflicts and the settling of people many centuries ago now. It's not like the Catholic Protestant issue is completely put to rest in the country. But if anyone thinks that the Catholic Protestant issue was a massive divide, it's nothing compared to the divide between a secularized Ireland and people who want to behead people for being gay or stab children in the streets of Dublin. Whenever I talk about this issue, people seem to be seized by a type of fatalism. And I can understand why a lot of Irish readers and others are seized by that now. They never voted for this. They never wanted it. Their politicians tell them off when they say they don't want it and keep doing it anyway. But the thing is, there's no reason to be fatalistic about this, because there are other countries, including in Europe, that have got a handle on this. And you don't have to be a right-wing, frothing-at-the-mouth maniac to do that. In Denmark, a left-wing government has effectively brought the illegal migration into Denmark to zero. It's actually brought migration as a whole almost completely down. And that's because left and right in Denmark realized that Denmark, also a country of about 5 million people, couldn't sustain legal or illegal migration at the levels it was suffering from and from the places it was having to welcome people. So the Danes actually managed to close their borders, have a sensible migration system, and do what the public wanted. If Denmark can do it, there's no reason why Ireland can't do it as well, except that the people in charge choose not to.